Hi everyone, a very good afternoon. So we have Sonali, and Sonali, you have your colleague also, right? Who will be helping
Right,
us.
Simran Garg.
Simran Garg, who will be helping us with, the brush up session on Artificial Intelligence Foundation by SkillUp. And they will also guide you on what are the important tips that you need to be keeping in mind in order to take the assessment. So the next step should be you should take the certification. Okay, my voice is echoing. So is it echoing for everybody?
No, it's good for me.
Okay, so then Rapta, maybe you are logged in from 2 devices. So maybe it's echoing for you. It's good for everyone else. So just check that. And post this, my colleague Saurav is going to put the link to the assessment. You should take the GUI assessment for this course. Since it was not available last year, that's why, SkillUp agreed to do this session to support you all guys to take the next step. So after this, the next step is to take the MeitY certification. So Rabiti, why don't you try log out and log in again? Maybe it should work. So we will just wait for another 2-3 minutes for everybody to join, and then we shall start. I'll just pass it on to Sonali and Simar for the next course of action.
Okay, thanks, Sanjana. Very good morning to everybody out there. And today from SkillUp, what we have got for you is a brush up session post Foundations of Artificial Intelligence course. So you will be taking up this assessment that Anjana just referred to. So in order to help you out with that assessments, to brush up with the concepts and whatever is as a part of the assessment, it becomes helpful for you indeed to take up that assessment. We have got for you a brush up session today. So to start up with the session, let's begin then. Anjana, should we proceed or we should wait for a minute for everybody to join?
Yeah, we'll just wait for a few more people to join so that they, some people take a little while. So maybe we are already at 11:30 to 11:35. Shall we start?
Definitely. Yes. Let's wait for a couple of more minutes and then we'll be good to go. I think by then, if you can put it in the chat, how many of you have taken up this course from the site, this nasscom FutureSkills site? Have you found it interesting enough, helpful enough in terms of laying your foundations on artificial intelligence? Let's talk about that so that I have an idea and I'll talk about it likewise during the session. Can we have the answers in the chat? If yes, then I would definitely mark you as to see and to have an understanding of how many of you have already taken up this course and how many are very new and yet to take this course from the platform. Okay. Yes, Sandeepan, thanks. We'll definitely bring up this brush up session, specifically the hands-on that we have got for you today in order to help you to take this assessment readily and quickly and with an ease. Okay, yeah, I got it, Arvind, definitely.
Someone has raised their hand also. So, Buchi, would you like to put it in the chat in case, because right now we would, not take any.
Yeah, Buchi Babu saying, yes, I think he has taken the course.
Yeah.
It would be good if you can put your answers in the chat. Okay, thanks, Vijendra. Okay, so I think we should start with the session now. Okay, so let's begin with the session. So the agenda for today's session that we have gotten for you is divided into two parts. The first part I'll be taking up, wherein I'll be talking about the concepts that have been covered as a part of your foundations of artificial intelligence. Post that, we have got for you an extensive Jupyter notebook, a hands-on, where you can see some of the concepts in Python that will help you in taking up the assessment post doing this course and onto the platform. Let's begin with the session. So I am Sonali Gupta, mentoring manager at SkillUp Online. My skill set is basically into artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, data science, and Azure cloud. With me is my colleague Simran Garg, and she is in senior technical mentor at SkillUp Online with a skill set effectively and highly into artificial intelligence and data science. So what is AI? So let's begin and recapitulate as in what we have done into the course, or for them who are very new to this one. So what do you think? What is AI? Anybody in the chat? Okay, so let me just come up with the answer. So what is AI? AI basically is a branch in which we build in very smart machines, which are indeed capable of performing different tasks, typically require the human intelligence. Yes, Suma, definitely it's a machine mimicking human-like intelligence. Absolutely, yes. And more specifically, what happens when we talk about artificial intelligence? So it is what? A mathematical algorithms. It's a group of algorithms that we put forward to understand, which have got a definite pattern and provides the output, which is based on the analysis of this pattern. So as you'll move ahead in the terms of learning the AI and machine learning, you will come to understand that a lot of algorithms are being based on those data that has been provided. And once that algorithm is, and every algorithm has got that definite pattern. So that is how we start making work this AI tools. Okay, so there are certain different kind of AI, different types of AI. What are they? Let's brush up quickly. So what are there are different types of AI. What are they? Anybody? If anybody remembers? Okay. So the first one is ANI, that is artificial narrow intelligence. Now, artificial narrow intelligence has a narrow range of capabilities. How? So your spam filters on your email inbox, your facial recognition softwares, your recommendation systems, for example, that you see Amazon, Netflix, Google Ads, and personal assistants like Siri, Cortana in your phones are all based on the narrow intelligence of AI. Then comes the artificial intelligence, general intelligence, which is on par with human capabilities. Now, how does this matter? So this is having the self-awareness, a space odyssey hall. If you have seen some of the movies, Blade Runner replicants, these are few Star Wars characters. These are all based on artificial general intelligence, which is in par with the human capabilities. And then comes the artificial super intelligence. Now, this is something which is not yet there into the system, but yes, they are working on getting it done. So it is a super intelligent machine that would be not only self-aware, but self-preserving. So it can take its own decisions based on certain, based on some theorist and possibly deadly to human according to others. But this is exactly what they are thinking to bring in. It is not prevalent right now, but they're working to bring in. But since it is having its own pros and cons. I think cons more. So they are still working on getting it done. So these are the different types of AI. Now, then we talked about what is machine learning. So what is machine learning? When we talk about machine learning, what do we understand by that? Anybody? Okay, supervised and unsupervised, definitely with algos. Yes, Buchi. Thanks for your answer. Learn from data. Absolutely, Sudhir. Training the system. Absolutely, Dr. Rajalakshmi. I think we have got a very good audience giving beautiful answers out there. Okay, so coming back. So what is machine learning? Automating and improving the learning process of the computers based on the experience without being actually programmed. So what do we do in otherwise? We program in a language. What do? We program it. But now, based on the programming and based on the learning that has been there within a machine, if it can perform the functions by itself, this is what machine learning do. Now, again, there are two types of machine learning, supervised and unsupervised, right? And this is generally what exactly is the model for machine learning. What do? Is we take the data, we clean and prepare and manipulate the data. What do? Then once your data has been cleaned and is ready to be processed, we train the model and then we test your data. And lastly, when we test the data, if we think that there is a scope of improvement, we improve the data, right? So this is exactly the cycle of the machine learning. Yes, Amit, it's a self-building algorithm by the computer, definitely. So based on certain patterns, the machine learning apply those patterns again and again on the set of the data, and then it gives you the result. Okay, then we talked about relational databases into the foundations course. So what do we understand by relational database? So we will be just talking about certain concepts here. So what do you understand by relational database? Any answers? Okay, normalized. But what that relational mean? Okay. So connected with keys, joins, data with interactions, associations. Okay, so these are all features of the relational database that you're saying. Yes, here is the answer. Relating the tables of the SQL. So relational databases that we have data in the form of tables. And what do? We relate them to each other in the form of, yes, what has been given here, connected with keys, with associations and all those stuffs. Absolutely wonderful answers. Okay, so let's see what is relational database. So when we talk about today's business, which use relational database architecture, instead of the flat files or hierarchical databases that was used in lastly for the company database management system. Why is it so? It is just because the purpose of relational database is to handle the wide range of data formats and process the queries efficiently. Yeah. So that is basically the purpose of relational database. And database is what it in itself is a structure that stores the organized information, and most of them contains multiple tables, which may each include several different fields. And these fields are related to one another in the form of the keys. Okay, now SQL is one of the relational database language, right? And is basically used to store and retrieve the data in and out of the database. Now, when we talk about relational models, so what does that relational model mean? So it is basically the collection of the data and that organize the data with defined relationships. What exactly is the relationship among each of the data that is a part of that particular table? So when we talk about a relational model, then the data is actually being stored within a table. So how does that look like? So when we talk about this table, these are actually the attribute name. Okay, so Rakesh is saying, can you go back to the earlier slide? Definitely, Rakesh. Okay, give me a minute. Yes, please. So what's your question? Can you write it in the chat so that I can answer it? I'll give it a pause here. About SQL. Okay, so SQL is basically a structured query language that is basically utilized in order to process the relational database. So when we have the database in the form of the tables, so this is one of the language that we used in order to process the data out of those tables. So how do we insert that data into the table? How do we retrieve the data into the table? If there are certain data in the table, how do we go about manipulating the data? This exactly is what is being done by this SQL language, that is the structured query language. I hope I have answered your question, Rakesh, as of now. We definitely come to know SQL, don't worry. Okay. Okay, Rakesh says yes. Let's move on to next slide. So I think this slide is good enough now. So understandable. And what I'm telling you here is that the relational databases, we have number of relational models. So when we talk about relational model, which is a data that is stored in the form of a table, so how does it look like? So if you see here, this is a small structure where we have attribute names out there at the top. These are the data, right, within those attributes. Now, if we talk about each column, so every column is supposed to be an attribute of this entire table, right? And if this is the attributes, and then the values that are a part of this table are the attribute values, right? And if I talk about the row within the table, so every row is being designated as in the tuples. So these are known as tuples. And as a whole, a table can be termed as a relation. So this is exactly what the relational model talks about. Okay. Let me move ahead. Now, one of our candidates talked about the keys. Definitely, when we talk about the relational database, all the tables within that relational database are being connected to each other by the keys, by associations. So what are those keys? So basically, when they are connected by two keys, that is primary and the foreign key. So primary key is actually the main key or the identifier or the attribute that we talked about in the previous slide, which actually identifies every row within a table. For example, in a customer table, if you take, every customer might have a repetitive street, might have a repetitive value of maybe last name, maybe Gupta or Sharma or anything as such, but there would be a definite column by which you can identify each row in a table. And that identification is given by the primary key, for example, here, customer ID. So this gives you identity of each and every record within the table. Now, the same key when taken onto another table. For example, now we have an order table out here. Now, order table can have now multiple customers can place a single order. So maybe the customer ID may be repetitive here, but again, to identify each and every row, we should have a definite key, that is order number here. So the order number here becomes your primary key. But now, since we are connecting it to the customer who are placing the order, so we should have customer ID. So this customer ID in this particular tables becomes your foreign key. And this is how these two becomes related to each other. So here, although here it becomes your primary key, but here it becomes your secondary key. So when you start retrieving your data in the form of the rows, in writing the queries, so it becomes helpful for you to retrieve the data of a customer along with their orders. So this is how these keys helps in relating the tables together within a relational model. Okay. Now let's talk about what are the different relationship types. So when we talk about different relationship types, there is one-to-many, one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-one is also there. But since we have talked about this into the foundation, so let's talk about one-to-one and one-to-many. How does it happen? So if you see the first one, we have an address type and address. So address type ID in the first one, when connected to one-on-one to the address ID onto the second table. For example, if you try to retrieve a record from address type, right? So you will have just one-to-one connection. That means only one record will be retrieved at a time. But indeed, if you in the second one, if you try to retrieve a record of a person with a contact ID, maybe 101, and that contact may have number of credit cards. And if you try to retrieve the credit card details of that person, that means a single person can have multiple credit cards, right? So that means this is actually defining one-to-many relationship. Okay. So this is how the relationships work. Any questions till now? I'll take a pause. I think all good here. Yes. Okay. So let's move ahead. So now these are the relationship types. Now somebody asked me of what is NoSQL. So what do you understand by NoSQL and how is it different from SQL? So when I talk about SQL, I'm telling you that it uses the relational database. So what does the NoSQL does in that case? It uses distributed database management system. Distributed means your data is being distributed among different servers, right? Now, how does it happen? Sandeepan, it is DBMS is database management system. It's not distributed database management system. Distributed is DBMS. So this is NoSQL is based on distributed database management systems. Yes, definitely. Yes. Somebody says, who is it? Kalashti Satvik. Okay, so he says not only SQL in form of JSON format. Absolutely. Yes, in the form of JSON format. Okay, so moving ahead, What is the basic difference when we talk about SQL and NoSQL? So SQL, as we talked about, uses relational database system, while when we talk about NoSQL, it uses distributed database management system. When we talk about the JSON files, we talk about certain files that are in the form of the document. So your all data is in the form of a documented structure rather than in the form of a table. Now, if you talk about SQL, it is vertically scalable and NoSQL is horizontally scalable. Anybody can tell me what is the difference between when you talk about horizontally scalable? Let's see. What do you understand when we talk about horizontal scalability? Arvind, but more fields could be added, would be in the relational database. When we talk about the tables, what you're doing is you're adding the fields out there, right? You can add the columns. So fields, when we say fields, that will more pertain to SQL rather than NoSQL. When we talk about horizontal scalability, it means you can add more documents as in to scale up your database. For example, we have a document with a lot of data. Now you want to scale it further. You need not to put it into that document. You just need to attach another document and that becomes scalable horizontally rather than going vertically. If you want in a SQL, vertical scalability is there when you add the data into a table. But in case of NoSQL, it becomes horizontal. Then in SQL, we have fixed or predefined schema in the form of a table. But yes, NoSQL, you can use dynamically created schema because there is no particular table as such with a defined attributes. So definitely it becomes a boon, pros for you in that case to use it dynamically to create the schema. In SQL, is useful for complex queries, while NoSQL is basically useful for hierarchical data storage. So for example, we have main document. The main document can be a part of two sub-documents. Maybe a document has a lot of data. We then divide it in the form of, okay, we have the address of the customer as in one document. We have the details of the customer, what he has bought into another document. While in the case of SQL, we have in the form of the tables where we use relations and we use the keys indeed. So basically in SQL, it is used for complex queries, while here it is useful for hierarchical data storage. In SQL, not useful for hierarchical data storage, while in NoSQL, not good for complex queries. Yes, so Kalashti, yes, NoSQL is basically used for stack purposes, definitely because it has got a hierarchical data structure of the documents. Okay, now what are the popular NoSQL programs that we include? We are coming on to that. So popular NoSQL programs include, so one is MongoDB. So basically, if you see in most of the corporates, MongoDB is used widely as in when the NoSQL database is being concerned because it's an open source. Again, the second one that is widely used, but not as such as MongoDB is Apache CouchDB. That is again one of the open source database. Cosmos DB is Microsoft proprietary, and Amazon DynamoDB is Amazon proprietary. And these four databases are the NoSQL databases that are readily used in the corporates. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of MongoDB. That gives you a fair idea of what MongoDB is, and it will also help you while you take your assessments with us. So MongoDB is basically a document data model. As we already know that it's a NoSQL database, so it is in the form of a document. and is a powerful way to store and retrieve the data that allows the developers to move fast. So when you take this course, or if you have already taken the course from the platform, the Foundations of Artificial Intelligence, there have been given a number of labs around MongoDB that will help you to understand how the document looks like. How do you create a document? For example, if you want to create a document data model, so how do we utilize MongoDB, install MongoDB? How do we utilize it to start creating your document by creating the records in there? How do we retrieve them? And how do we manipulate the data that is already there? So definitely go about and do the hands-on if you want a little more hands-on and practicals on the MongoDB on the foundations course. Okay, now second is that MongoDB stores all its documents in the form of a JSON file. And it also means that the data stored in the JSON file are easily sent between the servers. And most of you might have, if you are from development background, or you are thinking of taking it. So when we develop most of the .NET .NET applications or Java applications, these JSON files you will find readily to be created, because again, these are one of the files that are being easily sent between the server, which acts as a bonus for database migrations because they are light in comparison to the tables that you create, or the database, relational database that you create. So that is why the JSON files are being readily used. And lastly, I think the MongoDB can fast and easy process the data, increasing the processing speed of the data. And that is the main purpose why it is mostly used into the website creations. And as I told you that NoSQL is horizontally scalable, so does the MongoDB. So it is horizontal scale out architecture, and it supports huge volumes of both unstructured data as well as traffic. So I think that gives you a fair idea of what MongoDB is, what NoSQL is. If you want to have your good hands-on indeed, then definitely I would suggest to go about and take the practicals that are there defined into the course as well. Okay, then let's talk about a little bit on DML statements. So what do you understand when we talk about what is DML? What is DML? Anybody in the chat? Let's see if you remember what is DML. Okay. Okay, I think most of them already know the answer. Okay, so yes, it's data manipulation language. So what does it do? These actually, what does it do is they actually retrieve the data, or they create the data within the database. So one of the DML statement is select statement. So how does it work? It's select or retrieve the data from the table. And what is the syntax? Just we select the column name from the table name. So this is one of the statement with an order by clause also. So with order by, what does it do? Order by basically orders the column in the form of ascending order or the descending order. The next DML statement is group by statement. So what does group by do? Group by basically retrieves the data from the table, grouping them on a particular column. And there are a number of aggregate functions that we use in the group by. So in the group by, we use, for example, count, max, minimum, sum, or average. So if we have any column that we want the maximum of that particular column, the count or the count of that column, or the minimum value from that column, the group by clause actually helps you to perform that function in the select statement. So what happens is, for example, here is a syntax. What do you do is select column name from the table name, where we give you the condition, group by. Now here comes the group by clause. So group by which column do you want your entire query to be grouped by, right? And order by, if it is required, you can use it. If you're not, you can leave it. So we are just giving you an example here, right? So let's see one example also. For example, select count customer ID. So one thing more, when we talk about group by, so group by whatever column is a part of a group by clause is also should be a part of select clause. For example, if we are saying group by country, so the country should be a part of even the select clause in the entire SQL statement. So it is like select count customer ID. So it will give you the count of the customer IDs based on the countries, right? From this customer table. Now let's talk a little bit around the aggregate function. So I will not be taking the whole of it. I'm just covering the part of the entire course that will actually be helping you in taking up the assessment indeed. So there are a lot many things that are covered, and you will have a practical implementation of those things into the course itself. So who all have not taken the course, I would suggest to go about and take the course before taking up this assessment with us. Okay, so this is just a general idea of what these functions do. For example, the count, it returns the number of rows that matches the specific criteria. You can see the syntax out there, a sample, as in how the count is being used onto a particular attribute into a table. Then we have an average function. So again, which is one of the aggregate function, which returns the average value of a numeric column. Then we have sum, which returns the total sum of numeric column again. And then we have got for you joins. So somebody told me earlier during the session that in SQL, we do have joins. So these are the basic joins that you will be readily using when you will be using the tables, or you will be working on the data in the form of a table. So these are like inner join, left outer join, right outer join, and full outer join. So let's talk about first the inner join. So how does it work? The inner join, basically what happens is when two tables A and B are given, so there could be certain records that are common and have got the matching values. So when we do the inner join, what happens? It returns the records that have got the matching value in both the tables. So can anybody tell me what happens in the outer join, left outer join? Let's see. What does it do when we talk about left outer join? I think the Venn diagram that is there on your screen gives you a fair idea of what left outer join does. Anybody in the chat? Okay, I'm still waiting for any one answer. Okay. Satvik says gives the output only of the table A. Okay, seeing the Venn diagram. Include unmatched rows. Okay. Okay, so let's move ahead. So what is left outer join? I think good enough, Satvik is very right. What happens is it returns all those records from the left table and the matched records from the right table. So what it does is, if we have table A and table B, so whatever is there which is unmatched in table A, because we are talking about the left one. So whichever table from table 1, table 2, if we are putting it into a select query. So what happens is it picks up all those records that are not matching from table A, as well as those records which are getting matched. So it is not about all the records in the table A. It would be not matching the table A, as well as those which are matching with the table B, right? So it is definitely, I think Satvik is right, gives the output of only the table A. And what about the right join? So right join does the opposite of what the left outer join does. So it returns all the record from the right table and the matched record from the left table. And last but not the least, the full outer join. So what does full outer join says? Full outer joins returns all the records when there is a match in either left or right table. So it will give you all the records from the right table as well as the left table. Okay, then we talked about a third course that is there as a part of foundations. We talked about the statistics. So statistics is defined in the form of mathematical analysis, right, on the data. And that is a very important part when we talk about artificial intelligence, because much of the analysis is being done mathematically on the data. And then once that analysis is being done, then we go around moving in cleaning the data, manipulating the data, make it more readily available for us to start building up the models. So those statistics, basically what we have defined in the foundation, what we have given in the foundations is descriptive statistics. Although there is one more statistics, that is inferential statistics, which is a part of statistics, and it actually gives out the inferences from the data. But we have talked about more into the foundations about descriptive statistics that describes the data, because that exactly is what is required when we start cleaning the data and processing the data. So there are certain things that are part of descriptive statistics, and these are mean, median, and mode, and then the standard deviations. So what are these all about? So what is mean? Mean is simply a mathematical average of a set of two or more numbers. So when we have a set of numbers, so what do? It's an average of the set of two or more numbers. And it is most common measure of the central tendency of a set of points. When you start working with the data gradually, so when you have got a set of points, so the common measure of the central tendency gives out the mean. And what does that mean means? It means the mean is very sensitive to outliers. Include unmatched rows. Okay, so this is something was given by Bucci. Okay. And then again, mean can only be used with numeric data. Right? So these are some of the attributes of mean. Let's talk about what does the mode means. The frequency of any attribute is the number of times the value occurs in the data set. So what is the frequency of that number within a data set? And it is found by collecting and organizing the data in order to count the frequency of each result. What do you understand? It's the most frequent number, which is giving the mode. Right? And that is the number that occurs in the highest number of times. So the notion of what does it reflect then? So it reflects that the notion of frequency and the mode are typically used with categorical data. When we talk about data, again, the data is of different types, categorical. So one is categorical, but it can be used on any data type. So when you talk about data, there are different data types. So one data type is categorically when we categorize the data, whether it is A or category B. When we can divide the data. So the frequency or the mode applies to those types of data indeed. Mode. Okay. Now what do we do? What do we understand by the standard deviations? Now, it is basically the measure of the dispersion of data, how your data is dispersed around. So it measures how much the member of a collection of numbers vary from the mean of the collection. And here is the formula for the standard deviation. There is not much to be understandable when you talk about when we come to the foundations. It's only that you should understand what exactly is the standard deviation and what is the formula. And there are few exercises that you can take in the as a part of the lab that will help you to clarify your understanding on the standard deviation if required. Okay, moving ahead, we'll talk about a little bit of probability. So this is one of the concepts that has been covered in the foundation. And it is like this, it is basically concerning your numerical descriptions of how likely any event is to occur or how likely it is that a proposition is true. So probability is used extensively in AI to develop the machine learning model, which actually predicts the outcome, which is based on the probability. And below is the a formula given for the probability, where we say that the probability is the number of times an event can happen onto the total number of possible outcomes. So this is exactly what is being covered as a part of the statistics into the foundations course. And then lastly, we have a concept known as correlation. So what does correlation means? It is a statistical measure that expresses the extent to which the two variables are related. For example, if we talk about maybe a car with a fuel. So the fuel, the amount of fuel in a car and maybe the speed or maybe any other attribute we may take in that case, how they are correlated, whether they are related to each other or not. What exactly is the relation between the two elements when we talk about the data? So what does that mean? So this is where the correlation comes in around how the two variables are being related to each other. And the values always range between -1, that is a strong negative, 2 + 1, that is strong positive relation. And if it is 0, that means that those two attributes are not related or very weakly related to each other. Okay, so I'll take a pause here. Any questions till now, or we can move ahead? Because post this, we have got a Jupyter notebook for you that exactly will help you in taking the programming questions, which is a part of the assessment. So any questions till now? Okay, fine. Now there is one concept of different types of programming language. So basically there are 5 types of programming language when we talk about programming language. This is one is procedural. So what do you understand by procedural language? It is basically a sequence of statements or commands to achieve the desired output. That's a procedural programming language. But when we talk about object-oriented programming, so Python is one of the object programming language instances. So what does it do? This basically is a language that treats the program as a group of objects. What do? We create certain objects that is composed of data and program elements, which are known as attributes and methods. And these attributes and methods, or the programs that we create as a form of the object, they become reusable. So whenever we require, we can reuse those objects. So this is basically an object-oriented programming. When we talk about functional programming language, so functional programming rather focusing on execution of a particular statement or the functional language, it basically focus on the output of mathematical functions and evaluation. So this is what is functional programming language. Then what is scripting language? So do you think Python is a scripting language as well? What do you think? Seeing in the text that is given there for the scripting, it says that the programmer use scripting language to automate repetitive tasks, manage dynamic web contents, or support processes in larger application. Do you think that Python is a scripting language? Okay, Suma says yes. Sabita says yes. Anybody else? Absolutely correct. Yes. So Python is a scripting language because when we see Python, it is utilized actually to automate the repetitive task into the dynamic websites and also in large applications as well. And then we have, last but not the least, the logic programming language. So what does it do? Instead of telling the computer what to do, a logic programming language, it expresses a series of facts and rules to instruct the computer on how to make your decisions. So these are the 5 basic types of programming language. Okay, let's move ahead now with Python. So before we move ahead with Python basics, I would just like to show you a small video. Okay, so is the video audible?
Sonali, it's not, have you enabled the sound?
I think I have not. I need to share it again, I think.
Yeah, share it with enabling sound.
Okay. Okay, let me share. Okay, there you go.
Hi, in this quick video, we will learn why Python is one of the most sought after high-level general-purpose programming language. Python was conceived in 1980s, but has recently gained popularity because it is highly productive in comparison to other programming languages. Today, popular tech giants like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, Dropbox, Uber, Netflix, Stripe, Shopify, Reddit, and more use Python to develop their products. High-level data structures, along with dynamic typing and dynamic binding capabilities, make it an attractive option for rapid application development. It is also as a scripting and glue language that allows developers to connect existing components quickly. You can write and compile Python code, C, C++, that makes Python extensible. It is an open source language and highly popular among the online developer communities. Python is portable language. A Python code written on Windows platform can easily be run on Linux, Unix, and Mac OS. This need is accelerating the deployment of AI/ML applications like bots, text analytics, NLP, and more. Python is a developer's choice because of the following 5 advantages that the language brings to fore. It is easy to understand. It has pre-built models and libraries. It can be dynamically typed. It is ideal for rapid development, and it comes with a user-friendly data structures. Today, developers prefer to build data science-based AI applications using Python. Some of the popular machine learning libraries are scikit-learn, Keras, TensorFlow, and OpenCV. NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, Seaborn libraries are used to manipulate and visualize data to get more insights. Python is used widely in various application development areas. Django, Pyramid, Flask, and Bottle are favorite picks for web and internet development. SciPy, a collection of packages, is used extensively for scientific and numeric computing. Python is loved by educationists. Learning programming and coding is easy with Python. Python is also used for developing large-scale ERPs and e-commerce systems. So next time, when you think of developing an application rapidly, do consider Python. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. We would love to hear from you more on this one.
Okay, so hope you like the video and it has given you certain insights on Python as well. Okay, so let's move ahead with the basics of Python now. So when I talk about basics, there are few things that we'll talk about when we talk about basics, that is data types. What are different data types in Python? What are the strings, operators, which are used in Python, loops, and definitely the OOPS concept that is a part of Python basics. So these are some of the concepts that we'll cover in the second half, where right now after the concepts class, where you get to know and have an understanding of how does it work when we talk about all these things in a Jupyter lab practically. Okay, this will be taken up by a colleague of mine, Simran Garg, into the upcoming next hour of the session. And post that, as you see that there are two main libraries that is readily being used when we talk about Python programming, and one is NumPy. And this actually provides you with the useful methods that are used for data processing, specifically when the data is in the form of 1 or 2 dimensional numeric arrays. And this package is also installed by default. So when you install the Python and start using it, it will be there. You just need to include that package into your programming or into your Jupyter lab as a part of your programming language, and it is good to go. And secondly, let's have some hands-on on coding examples. So these will be readily taken up by Simran Garg. Then we have another library, which is again one of the library that is readily used in Python, that is Pandas, that is panel data. And in this, it's a package that provides fast, flexible, and expressive data structures, which are designed to make working the structured and time series data both easy and intuitive. So basically, the Pandas library work on mostly the time series data, while the NumPy, that package is basically used with the built-in functions for the numeric data. And Pandas basically aims to be the fundamental high-level building block of doing the practical real-world data analysis in Python. It is the broader goal of becoming the most powerful and flexible open source data analysis and manipulation tool available in any of the languages, because Pandas has extensive set of functions that basically use with a variety of the type of the data, while NumPy is more on the numerical aspects onto the data. And last but not the least, the Pandas, there are two main primary data structures of Panda is series and data frames. So there are two types of data structures that are there. One is series, when we talk about a series of data, one dimensional, and then a data frame with a row and a column. So when we talk about that, again, the Pandas are being used. And let's talk about a little bit about what exactly is the data frame. So in the left, you can see a small snapshot of how do we import the Panda library into our Jupyter notebook. So for example, we imported by saying import Pandas, as in whatever variable name you can use is in order to ease out when you write the code. But yes, it should make sense. And then what we are doing here is we are reading a CSV file. So this CSV file is actually a set of data, which we read. We start reading it by using a read command, like read CSV command, this function. And this function actually gives you the entire data that is there in automobile.csv file. It gets inserted into a data frame that is AutoDF. So this is actually creating a data frame. And the next line, if you see here, is what it is doing is giving a dot head. So this head function gives you the top 5 rows within that data frame. So data frame, as I said, is in the form of a row and column. So what does this do? When I say AutoDF dot def head 5, what it gives you an output is top 5 rows of that data frame. So data frame is basically most common structured API and simply represent a table of the data with rows and columns. And you can think of it as in the spreadsheet of a SQL table. Data frame has got few methods. One is info and one is describe. So info method, what does it do? It gives you the information about the kind of the data, what type of the data it is, right? While the data frame, the describe function in the data frame, that gives, it's a method on the data frame that describes the statistics of the data set. So we'll see that how does it work in the upcoming Jupyter notebook hands-on. And then in the course itself, you will be learning around the algorithms. So what exactly are the algorithms? Which we say is that in an algorithm, we give an input. There are certain set of rules which applies onto that input data to expect the output, and an output is being given. So what logic exactly is being applied onto an input data? This exactly is what algorithm is. And there are different types of algorithm that we will be talking about into the foundations, that are sorting and searching algorithms like bubble sort, insert sort. We are talking about those in the sorting algorithms, and how do you go about searching any element within a data. So that we talk about in what are the different types of searching algorithms. Then there are a few concepts that we should cover indeed in order to help you while taking your assessments. So there are a few things, as in what is memory view in Python. So memory view is a new concept, which says that the object allows the Python code to access the internal data of an object that supports the buffer protocol without copying. So basically the memory view, it's a function that allows the direct read and write and access to an object's byte-oriented data without needing to copy it first. So you can directly work on that object, copy that object, and write or access that object using the memory view. And the basic is that they can yield a high performance gain when operating on the large object, since it doesn't create a copy when slicing. So we'll give you a practical implementation even on this particular function, what exactly memory view does in the next Jupyter notebook session. Then we have a concept known as traceback. So what do you understand by it? Basically, traceback is a report that contains a function calls made in your code at a specific point. That is whenever you get an error, when you use the exceptions in your program. So there is a concept known as exception handling. So when you write a code, what do you do in order to catch any error that comes up within your code? We do exception handling. So when you get any error, it is recommended that you trace it backward in order to understand what exactly is the source of that error. So that is what exactly the traceback report does. So whenever the code gets an exception, the traceback will give the information about what went wrong within that code. So these are the two basic concepts. There is one more concept that I would definitely want to share with you, is a frozen set method. Now, this is one of the method that you might not have readily been known about, but yes, it is one of an important concept that you should be aware of. So basically, what does a frozen set method does it? It creates an immutable set object. So when we talk about immutable set object, what does you understand by immutable? Any answers in the chat? What does an immutable set object signifies? What is mutable set and what is immutable set? What does it signifies? Anybody? Okay. Thanks, Buchi, Babu. I think you're too active. Great audience as well. Right. Absolutely. So immutable set object is definitely that object which cannot be modified again and again. So once it is created, it is created. So it is built-in Python function, and it is a set of objects that therefore we cannot have duplicates value also. So frozen set is an immutable version of the Python set, and it is one of the important concepts in the Python. While the elements of a set can be modified at any time, but the elements of the frozen set remain the same even after creation. The frozen sets can be used as a key even in the dictionary. So there is one data structure that we use in Python, as in the dictionary is concerned. So it is used in the dictionary or as an element of any other set. But like set, it is not ordered. The elements can be set at any index. So this is one of an important concept that you should be aware of while before taking even, I think, that assessment. So I think this should help. And last but not the least, we'll talk about visualization. So when we talk about visualization is basically what is your graphical output. When you talk about the data, you have worked on the data. Now, how you go about if you want to create a dashboard with the graphic representation. So what do we have to do in that case? So there are certain set of libraries that need to be taken care of. There are certain set of graphs that you need to create. So those graphs are created as a by taking in concern certain set of packages. So these graphs are like pie chart, line chart, bar chart, ring chart, and map chart. Though we have talked about a lot around this in the course, but definitely we'll give you a small view of how these will happen and will be created into a Jupyter notebook. So this will be, that's all from my end. I will welcome Simran Garg to take over.
All right. Thank you, Sonali. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So we are going to, go through some different concepts for the revision of the Python that will actually help you for your assessment that you're going to take up after this session. Okay, so let us start with the first thing, that is list, tuple, and set. So you must have heard about these three terms and you must have gone across during the FOIA sessions that were conducted. So anyone can give me like what are the difference between these three, or what is a list, what is a tuple, or what is a set? Anyone? Okay, so looking at the first example itself, where I've created a variable as A1. So what do you think? What have I created here? It's a list, tuple, or a set? Okay, I got one answer. Mohan is saying it's a tuple. Anyone else? All right, Manjeet said it's a set. All right, so let us see. So yeah, it's a set. So if you see the variables that I had provided here inside A1 was A, B, and C. Set is something, which does not take any duplicates. So that's why it has removed itself one of the input, and it has already given us these three, B, A, and C. And you can see when I use a type function, it is mentioning it's a set. So here, this is a set that was created here. Whenever we are using curly brackets, it is basically means we are creating a set. So let us look at different functions of a set does. So here is another example that I've created. I've created another variable mySet in which I've given the input from 1 to 5. And when I use this functionality add 6, can anyone tell me what this function will do? Will it add 6 numbers or will it add 6 as one single number after 5? What is going to happen here? So yes, that's correct. It's going to add 6 to the complete set that we already created. So let me run this cell and see what happens. So this is the output that we see. It is showing us 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and it has added 6 after 5 here. So this is what the add function is doing here. Let us take another example using the update functionality. So has anyone used the update functionality on sets? What does it do? Will it replace set 1 with set 2, or will it add both the sets together? What is going to happen here? All right, I've got one response. It's going to add. Yes, that's right. Anyone else would like to give it a try? What update function will do here on 2 sets? All right, let us run this cell and see what will happen. So you can see we already had my set that was created. It had numbers from 1 to 6, and we had another set that had numbers from 4 to 8. So what it has done, it has combined both the sets, but it has removed the duplicates automatically. Since in a set, we cannot have any duplicate elements. Irrespective of how many sets we combine together, it will not have any duplicates in it. That is one of the features of making a set. So this is another example. We are doing the same thing. We created another variable with different elements, and we combined it with my set, and again that's the same output. So that was another example that we did using the update function. So now let us see how these functions work: union, intersection, and difference. So we have created 2 sets, set A and B. So let's does anyone know what does union, intersection, and difference mean here? What does union does, what does intersection does, and what does difference does? So let's go with union first. So let us try putting union, what happens when we use this. So what do you think when we use the union of these two? Will it show all the variables? Will it remove the duplicates? Let us see. So when we do the union of 2 sets, again, it combines all the variables, but it does not take any duplicates. So it has all the numbers from set A, set B, which are present, and it removes any number that is appearing again. If you see into both the sets, we have 2, which is common. So it is only mentioning 2 once. So we won't see any duplicates also when we use the union functionality. Let us check. Yes, that is correct because it is a set. Now let us see what happens when we use the intersection functionality. Okay, so if you see intersection functionality, it basically, shows up all the common ones that are present in both A and B. Only those elements will come out after intersection, which are present in both A and B. So looking at both the sets, see, we have number 2 that is present in both the things. Then we have number 4 that is coming both the sets. Again, 6, 8, and 10. And other numbers are appearing only once. So that's why when we use the functionality of intersection, all the common numbers that were appearing showed up. Okay, I can see this one question, like what is the difference between union and update? Okay, so what happens when we use an update functionality? It basically, the update function adds the things into its own set. See, if you see, we were using my set and we updated this list to this thing. But in case of union, a new variable is created. So when we are making this, when we're using this union functionality, all these elements are going to some new variable. So like, for example, we have two variables, X and Y. When we use the function X dot update Y, so all the elements are added to X variable. Whereas when we use the union function X dot union Y, it actually
Simran, there is a question. What is the difference between union and update?
Yeah, I'm explaining that itself. What is the difference between union and update? So what happens in case of update, when there are two variables, X and Y, and when we use the update functionality, X dot update Y, so all the elements of Y are added to X. So basically, in that case, variable X is changing. But when we use the union function, X dot union Y, in that case, a new variable Z is created in which all the elements of X and Y get added. Anyone has any other question till now, or should we move to the next topic? Okay, now let us understand what is a list and a tuple. So we, in the presentation, we have already understand, what you understand by mutable and immutable. So similarly, list is a mutable collection, whereas tuple is an immutable collection. Once we create a tuple, we cannot change it, whereas a list, we can make changes and updates to a list. So looking at this one, the first example that is mentioned, can you tell me it's a list or a tuple? All right, we have one answer, it says list. Okay, let us check. We are using the type function to understand what is it. So it says it's a list. So whenever we use square brackets, then it is basically we're creating a list. And whenever we are using round brackets, it's basically we are creating a tuple. So when I run this cell, you can see it has created a tuple here. And these are some functionalities that I've used with the tuple just to understand. So when we use dot count 6, it basically gives us 0 because there is no 6 number that is present in this tuple. When we use the count 2, it tells us, yes, there is one number with a number 2 that is present in this tuple. That's why it is returning us 1. Dot index is basically tells us the position of the element that we have passed here. So number 2 is present at position 1. The position numbering generally starts from 0. So it is at first position. That's why it has returned us 1. Okay, now let us look at these 3 functions that we came across in the presentation that was taken up by Sonali. And she has already given a brief description. What does memory view, frozen set, and bit array means. Just revising it, a memory view function, it allows direct read and write access to an object's byte-oriented data without needing to copy it first. Whereas a Python frozen set method creates an immutable set object from an iteratable. All these are built-in Python functions. And frozen set we already have discussed. It is basically a set object. Therefore, we cannot put any duplicate values in the frozen set because it's a set. And we have already discussed what sets are. Byte array is basically, it's a method again that returns a byte array object, which is basically an array of given bytes. And its sequence generally lies between 0 to 256. So let us see how these three functions work. I have assigned x, y, z to these three functions. So when I print x, this is how it points out where the memory is at. This is again from the system code that comes up. And when you print the type of x, it will tell us it is a memory view type because we are using this class here. Let us check how the frozen set works. See, it has created a set. It has shown us the value A, B, C. And when I check the type, it will return to us. It is a frozen set. Again, for set, when I print this byte array, it gives us the different bytes in which it is present. So if you see that we provided a length of 10, so it has provided us in the form of 10 bytes. If you can count, there are 10 different ports that have been created here. And when I check the type of this, it comes as byte array. So these are a few three functions that are inbuilt in Python, and these are generally used in case you check where at what memory it is pointing, what byte is that element is taking within the system when you're creating different objects using these functions. Let us come to the next topic, that is Python functions. So we were seeing like in Python, there are two functionalities. We already have some inbuilt functions that we directly use with different things and different code that we work on Python. But there is one functionality where you can create a function yourself. You can define the function and make use of it. Those are called user-defined functions. So here we are going to take a look how the user-defined function works. So you can see we have created a very simple function with its definition here. So looking at this code, can anyone tell me what is going to be the output of this code? Anyone, what do you think when I'm going to run this function by passing the value 5 here? So what is going to be returned? Okay, there is one answer by Rakesh. It says 6. Anyone else would like to give it a try? Just try going into the function definition and see when we pass 5 to the function, how the statements will work inside it, and finally what it's going to return. Okay, we have different answers. Some are saying 2, some are saying 3, some is saying 6. Let's see. Let's run the code and see what the outcome comes out to be. So output comes out to be 2. So see how this works. We have defined a function, and inside a function we are passing a variable a. But here we are again, putting a value a equals to 1. And then b is equals to a plus 1. Then we are printing the value of b, and then we are returning the value of b. So here, this is outside the function. We are defining a is equals to 3. irrespective of any value that we keep here, it will always take a equals to 1 in the function because it's a local variable that is created inside a function. So whenever we are going to run the function, so irrespective of whatever value we have mentioned here, a equals to 3, 4, or 5, it will always assign a equals to 1. Since a will be equal to 1, b's value will always be 2. That's why it's going to return 2 here. And again, when it returns the value to this function, output is 2. But if we remove this from here and pass variable a here, then the output will change. Now see, we have mentioned a equals to 3. So basically 3 is here. 3 will be passed to this function. When 3 goes here, the value of a becomes 3. 3 plus 1 becomes 4. And that's why output comes out to be 4. So that's how, the local and global scope of variable changes. If you're defining the same variable inside the function, it is going to pick up that value. But if that variable is not defined in the function and we've already defined it outside, it's going to pick up that value. It all depends what we are passing here. If we directly pass 6 here, and if we remove this thing from here, output will be 7, because right now we have passed 6 directly to the function. So there is no work of a equals to 3 being assigned here because we are not using this anywhere. So yes, Sadvik, if we use the function print a, we are going to get output as 3. So depending on whatever value is being passed here, that value is going to be printed here. Let us check if we put print a. So right now, since we are passing 6, so it will print 6 here. Any queries or questions in this function? Okay, so if we give print a outside the function, so it is going to print the value that has the global scope. So if I write it here, print a, so that will come out to be 3 because right now a is equal to 3 outside the function. It will not take the value that is inside the function because we are mentioning this print a come out outside the function. Any more questions inside this function? Okay, let's move to the next function that we have to understand this. Okay, we have created a function to reverse a string. So we have already added all the code that is needed to reverse a string. So let us see how it will behave. So let us take an example of, so I'm mentioning 1, 2, 3, 4. So what do you think after I mention 1, 2, 3, 4, what will be the output that we will get after reversing it? Yes, that's correct. So it is 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is how the function works. We are putting an input and then we are using the function that we have created manually. It will reverse the string. So if we check again, if we take another example, it will give us DCBA. So that's how this reverse string function is working. We are using, again, we have created this reverse string function, but here we are going to understand how the string is working when it is inside the function, when it is outside the function. So what value is coming up? So let us take the same example, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what has happened, if you see, this variable had already the values with it inside it. Last time that we created, that was this one, ABCD, and it had reversed into DCBA. But the new string that we created, 1, 2, 3, 4, it has remained same as 1, 2, 3, 4. because this is the same function that was working. This is another function that we have created. So this is just making you understand when the variable inside initially that is taken up, it was taken up like this. But afterwards, when it gets reversed, it uses the function inside the function definition that we have, and it gives the output accordingly. Right now, we were looking into the functions that we created manually. Now, let us look at one of the built-in functions that we have in the Python. Some of the functions we have already seen when we were using, list, tuples, and sets. Okay, there's a question. If we give reverse string input, there will be no effect. No, there will be effect. So whatever variable that you pass inside this thing, see, looking at this example, you come to this example, whenever we were giving this input into this thing, it was getting reversed. So similar thing is happening here. The function is same, only effect we are saying how the value goes inside and how the value remains when it is outside the function. So there will be effect. Yeah, that's right. We can change the name of the function since these are user made. These are not inbuilt functions. You can change the name and go ahead and check how it will behave. So wait, let us check if we create this function. Sajid, does this answer your question or is there still query regarding you? All right, let us change this and check. Yeah, as you said, the functionality will work same. If we change the function name, there will be no change in the function. This function naming can be anything. In fact, if you name it as XYZ also, only thing is when you're passing it, you need to make use of the correct function here. So putting from reverse string to reverse string one will not make change in the functionality that it's working. Should I move ahead, subject, or any more queries around this? You're talking about this first cell. Please confirm once. Yeah, so see, again, I gave the input and it is coming accordingly. This is a function. Input function will take whatever we are mentioning here. So anything, if you want to put it directly, then Sadvik, let's keep this your query on hold and move ahead since everyone is saying this, and then I'll get back to your query at the end of the session. All right, now let us talk about the built-in functions that we have. So let us look at, we are looking at the length function. That is a built-in function that we generally use with strings to understand what is the length of a string. So here we are going to input a string, and then we are going to check what the length of the string is. We can directly use len bracket. We pass the string here to understand what the length of the string comes up. Give me a second. All right. Okay, so this is a string that I'm passing. So can anyone tell me when I run the length function on the string, what is going to be the output? Okay, so the output comes out to be 6, as there were 6 letters into the string that we passed. So that's how the length function works. It counts the total number of characters that we have passed inside it. So now let us understand about pandas and numpy. We have already gone across the theoretical lessons for pandas and numpy that were covered in the presentation. Now let us see how practically it works. We need to import the pandas library before making use of pandas. We are using the import function, import pandas as PD, and then we are reading a file to it. So we have already an example file that we are taking here, and we are reading it. The head functionality of this actually tells us, shows us the first 5 rows of the data set. So when I run this function with the data frame that is created, it shows us the first 5 rows of the data set. And the tail functionality shows us the last 5 rows. You can see these are the last 5 rows that is showing up when we use the tail function. So the head function shows the first 5 rows, the tail function shows us the last 5 rows. So these are different functions that we can make use into the data frame. So let us see what it does. When we use the info function on the data frame, it will give us all the information related to it. So you can read here also, the info function is used to get a concise summary of the data frame. The describe function method basically returns the description of the data in the data frame. So it gives us the complete count, what is the mean of the data set, the standard deviation, minimum value, maximum value. So it gives us a complete description of the data. Is a function that basically checks if there are any empty or null values in our data. So basically it is showing all the details. So right now it says false. Wherever it is true, it means there is a null value or there is a empty cell that is present inside this data. Mean will obviously calculate the mean of each column. So mean is something that is only calculated for the columns that have a value of int or float. It will not calculate the mean values anywhere where the input is in form of some characters or var or char. So you can see, looking at this data frame, see it has a date type, it has a character type. All these only units and unit price were in form of int or float. So that's why when we calculated mean, we only got returned for these two columns and not the other columns. Similarly, median is also be calculated for these two columns only. So now moving ahead with NumPy. So again, we need to import NumPy before making use of it. And we are going to see what all different functions we can make use with NumPy one by one. So when we use the zeros 20, it is going to create an array of 20 zeros into it. So you can see there are 20 zeros inside this array that is being created using NumPy. When we use the arrange function, so it is going to create an array starting from 21 till 31. So that's how the arrange function works. We give a bracket of numbers and accordingly numbers are assigned inside the array. In this, randomly 10 numbers are added into the array that we are creating. So using this function NumPy, we generate a random 10 numbers inside this. When we use a repeat function, it will basically repeat all the numbers till the till the mark that we have mentioned. So it is saying number that needs to be repeated is 3, and how many times? It is saying 13. So 13 times 3 has been repeated here. Then again, this is another function that is full. It creates an array, okay, which has 30 times 6. So in this function, what happens? We mention the numbers, like how many times we want to display the number and what number needs to be displayed is mentioned on the right hand side. Now using the arrange and reshape function, it is basically creating a range from 0 to 29, and we have mentioned reshape. Reshape function basically creates a matrix of size 5 cross 6. So this is how these two functions works on the NumPy. This is another example of arrange and reshape function, but just here we are making use of arithmetic operators. So we have all the numbers from 1 to 51, but we are dividing it by 100, all the numbers. So we can see all the decimal numbers are shown, 2 decimal places, up to 2 decimal places here. So that's how, we use different functionality here on different functions that can be used with NumPy. Let's come to the next topic, that is loops. So we have for loops and while loops that we can make use of in Python. So let us see how the functionality of these loops work. So you can see we have created one while loop here. So if I run this code, can anyone tell me what output you're going to see when I run this code? Please give it a try. Okay, we have different answers. It says someone is saying 55, someone says 45. Okay, let us run and check. The sum is going to be 55. So see, let me just explain how it actually works. So initially we have set I equals to 1 and n is equals to 10. So this while loop will work till the time, I is less than or equal to n. And every time, whenever it goes inside the loop, there is going to be sum equals to sum plus I. So initially sum was 0. When I is equals to 1, sum becomes 1, and then I gets incremented. This loop will continue till the time I becomes 10. So it basically keeps adding every time, all the numbers inside the sum till the time it does not come out of the loop. As the loop breaks, as I becomes 11, it will go to the condition 11 is less than equal to 10, which is false. So at that time, it will break and it will come out of this loop and it will print the output. That is coming out to be 55. Now let us see how the break statement works when we use it inside the loop. So looking at this code, we have provided like if value equals to p, it should break and then print the value. So can anyone give me like after I run this code, what is the output that is going to come up? See, as soon as the value becomes p, it will come out of the loop. Okay, let's see. Let me run it. See, so it is going to print. See, it's going to print the character one by one. So it's going to print H first, then E, then L, then O, and then see, there is a space. So it is printing the space as well. And once the value becomes P, it breaks out of the loop and it comes out and print the final statement, that is class over. So yes, it's going to print hello after space, then it is printing class over. So that's how this break statement works. Now let us understand how continue statement will work. We have the same function, but here we are going to make use of the continue keyword. So please take a try and see what do you think the output will be in this case. Okay, let us run the code and check. Yes, that is right. As mentioned by you all, it is not going to print P except P, all the letters and the statement will be printed. Okay, now let us look into the if-else condition statement that we use. Another example that is there for the code. Please go through it and see what do you think the output will be for this cell. Let us check. Yes, all of you are correct. It says it's going to print error in this case. Okay, now this is an example of the infinite loop. So, infinite loop is basically that will keep continuing till the time we don't break it or stop it. So let us see how it will work. So do you want to continue? If I keep mentioning yes, it will keep asking me, it will keep printing it. Again, I'll mention yes, it will keep continuing. In order to break from it, I have to mention n and it will come out of the loop. So infinite loop is a loop that, it keeps running as long as we want it, and we only can break it when we want to end it. Okay. Taking an example of another in these loops, please look into this code and see and tell like what is going to be the output for this cell. Okay, let us see what will be the output. So we are, sending numbers from 1 to 101. And we are checking if I is divisible by 9. So if you see, all the numbers will be printed except the numbers that are divisible by 9. Yeah, that is correct. So it will print all the outputs except the multiples of 9. So you will see 9 is missing, then 18 is missing, then 27 is missing from here, then 36 is missing from here. Similarly, up to 99. 99 will be missing from here. So that's how the output of this came up. So there are two questions for you that if you would like to attempt. First challenge is you need to take two numbers input from the user and ask the user to choose the operation to perform, whether it can be a plus operation, minus, division, or multiplication. Depending on what the user input, they need to perform an operation and print the output. If the user is not one of the operation mentioned, we are going to print an appropriate message. So basically, you have to make a function where you take two inputs and perform the operation according to input that we get from the user. If we give an addition operation, it is going to add two numbers. If we give a subtraction, it is going to subtract. If we give a division, it is going to divide. And if we give a multiplication operation, it's going to multiply. So anyone can, I can give you 2-3 minutes and you can give a try what code we are going to use. And then I'm going to show you the solution for this question. If there are any doubts or issues, please come ahead and let me know. A basic hint for this challenge, you need to make use of if-else statement. You can share, basic algo also like functionality that you are going to make use of to create this function instead of, writing all the steps from 1 to n. Thanks, Manjeet, for sharing your input. All right, let us look into the solution. So, yes, Manjeet, the code that you shared was correct. So we are going to get the first number entered. We're going to get a second number as an integer entered. And then we're going to ask what operation needs to be performed. So if it is as a plus operator, then we're going to add two numbers. If it's a subtraction, we're going to subtract. If it's a multiplication, we are going to multiply. If it's a division, we're going to divide. And if the input is not anything from these four, then we are going to print that it is not a valid operator. So let us see and try to run this code. All right, we are going to enter first number. We're going to enter second number, and let's do a addition and see the output comes out to be 30. Similarly, you can perform multiplication, subtraction, and division. So that's how this code works. Okay, let us take another challenge. It says get the user to input age as a number. If the number is less than 18, we are going to print children not allowed. If the number is above 30, we are going to print this show might be too boring for you. If the number is between 18 to 30, both inclusive, print welcome to the show. So please go ahead and give it a try to this code as well. And let's give us a minute or so for the learners here. And then we are going to take a look into the solution for this challenge as well. So again, you need to make use of if-else statement here. So do we have anyone who can share us what needs to be done for this question?
I think not as of now, Simran.
Okay, so let's look into the solution for this. Again, it was based on same functionality of if-else and see how this code works. So see, we are going to ask the user to enter the age, and again, then the functionality comes up. If age is less than 18, we are going to print this. If age is greater than 30, this is going to be printed. And if anything other than this, we are going to print welcome to the show. So let me run this code. Let's enter 25, and the output comes out to be welcome to the show. And similarly, if we want to check if we enter an age less than 18, it is going to print children not allowed. And if we enter any age that is greater than 30, it is going to enter this. This show might be too boring for you. So that's how, we are creating this loops, making use of loops to understand how we can get this code working. Thanks, Advik, for sharing the code. That looks correct. So anyone have any doubts of all the topics that we have covered in this session? Please do share and ask.
Also, if you can just add, Simran, what kind of questions were there in the, in the final assessment, so that people are prepared, that they don't have to actually code, they should know whether the code is right or something.
Okay, so yeah, in the final assessment, there is no question as if like the codes that you are creating for these two questions. But in the assessment, there will be codes already created, and they will be asking you what output comes out after you run the code. Like in the initial stage of the file, when you're looking into codes that were already created, and I was asking you how the output will be after I run this code. So you will find questions around that. And there can be theoretical questions on the concepts that we have covered here. And plus, there can be questions around, specific functions, how is the function, what's the functionality of that function when we use it with any variable or any data type that we have seen in the file.
So basically, what we have tried putting in here in the Jupyter notebook is most of them trying to give you the concept, trying to give you the all the aspects of what has been asked into the assessment and help you out there. So all the codes that are there in the assessment are as such that the codes are given. You have to either assess it whether the code written is correct or not. There are multiple choice questions and you have to take it likewise. There are few which are there based on the concepts, and some of them are based on the code. Most of them are based on the code, but yes, conceptual questions are also there, which we have tried covering you while in the presentation. While most of them, the concepts that have been asked as a part of an assessment from the coding perspective, we have tried covering that as well in the form of a Jupyter notebook. So hope that helps everyone, and I wish everyone all the best in taking up the assessment. The link is already there shared with you all. Please click the link and take up the assessment as well. Over to you,
Thank you so much. So thank you to your team. Thank you to Simar also. I would like to say she hasn't come on video, so I would just like to pass the thank you to her as well. And I hope all of you, whoever has attended this session, will take assessment as soon as possible before you forget anything.
Absolutely.
And give it first shot. And I think we'll share the link to the recording as of now. I'm not sure if we can, because half the things they did was on Jupyter notebooks and the rest
Yes,
is...
so I think Anjana sharing this link of recording would really help them going through the basic concepts before they take up the assessment. If you can share that.
Yeah, so please quickly take assessment. The reason why we are saying if you don't put a deadline, then you will again forget by the time you take, and the assessment is paid. Yes, it is 600 rupees. It will give you a MeitY, Ministry of Electronic and IT logo, and it's a GOI recognized certificate.
There is one question in the chat, Anjana, asking, is there any deadline for the assessment?
Yeah, so that's why I said if there is no deadline, and since there was no deadline, everyone forgot the concept. So hence keep the deadline as this weekend and please take the assessment, because after that I don't think once you don't apply it right immediately, you will forget it. So best thing is to give the assessment and then also obviously keep trying it in the Jupyter notebooks. Okay. Yeah, I will soon upload it on YouTube channel as well, this recording. But in the meanwhile, we will share the recording with all of you. Thank you, Sonali, and thank you, Simar. And thank you everyone for attending this. And I hope all of you pass the assessment.
Definitely. All the best, everyone. And hope this session helped you a lot in taking the assessment as well. Please do take the assessment. Thank you, Anjana. Thanks, Saurabh. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.